And really, all I'm going to talk to you about today is how to set up a class and then how to get your students to submit papers on here so that you can check for plagiarism. Because there's lots of features with this website, and I don't want to overwhelm you because there are lots of things you can do. If you're just using this for plagiarism detection, that's great. I mean, really at this level, if that's all you're using it for and then you want to experiment with some other things on here, I'm happy to help you with that. I've been using this website for about 8 years now, and it's evolved quite a bit since I started using it a long time ago, but it's fantastic. The plagiarism detection is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's really good, and it's a lot better than Googling student papers. It takes a lot less time, like maybe a second to look at it. So I'm just going to show you kind of an overview of what this is going to look like, and I'll show you like what you would see once you have an account and once you had students submitting papers. I don't want you to feel like it's just something that students have to submit full essays on. Anytime, like Donna mentioned, if you have your students doing any kind of writing, they can submit on here. It's even if they're doing questions and you're worried they're going to Google answers, that's another way to use this. A lot of teachers that aren't teaching, like essays all the time, use it for study questions when they're afraid their students are just Googling answers. So that's another option here. The first thing I'm going to show you is just how to log in, and you're going to need some information for that. Some of you are already logged into this. So if you want to log in, that would be great.
Is any browser okay?
I think so. That would probably be a Donna Brazier question.
It is.
Okay. What you're going to do here is go to create account. I think it's right there. And if I mess this up, I'm sorry. This is not my computer, so it's I'm not used to using this one. And when you get ready to create your account, you'll need to go down here to instructor. Your students are going to go through this same process when you get ready to set them up. There's going to be something a little different because most of your students are probably already in a Turnitin because they're in an English class. So we'll talk about how to handle that. But you'll go to instructor, and then you'll need some information to get logged in. Our account ID, hopefully I can remember this number. Donna, you may have to remind me. Our account ID is 97510. 97510. And our join password, hopefully this is going to work because we just changed it, is Mustangs, plural, all lowercase. And then if you scroll down, you can enter in your name, your last name, your email address. You'll always log in with your email address, and then you create your own password. You only need the password Mustangs one time. You get ready to add your class. You can title your classes anything that you want, but you have to create your classes before the students can log in. So if you click on Add Class up here, the green button, it's very straightforward. And you'll see this screen. Class type, just standard, that's the default. I'm not really sure why you would need to change that, so please don't. Class name, just whatever you want to title your class name. You create, this is important because this confuses the students sometimes. You create an enrollment password that they just need one time. So it can be Mustangs, it can be your last name, anything that you want. They just need this one time. And sometimes that confuses them because they think that they need that every time to log in. They don't. And then subject area, student ages, I'm not really sure why all of this demographic information is on here, but and then class end date, I would just put the end of the school year. And then because the classes will expire after that date. You can still access them, but the students cannot after the class expires. So if you want to create a class, play around with that. The work falls on the students to get themselves logged in. I would not log in my students. It will take you too long. Make them do it. If they do it in like 3 minutes, I mean, they can sit there in class one day and get it done. So once you have your class set up, they only need 2 pieces of information from you. they will log into Turnitin.com and do exactly what you did with creating an account. Theirs is going to be a little bit different because most of them are already enrolled. So there's a screen that says, have you ever used Turnitin.com before? Most of them are going to say yes because they're in an English class already. And this works kind of like Schoology, where they can be in multiple classes at one time. So what they will see when they log in, they will just need the website. And then, sorry. Casey, what am I doing wrong up here? Okay. When they click on, make sure they click on student, but they'll see this page. If they have not ever logged into Turnitin.com, there are a few students here that have never logged in before that aren't using this in an English class. If that's the case, they need to go here. If they are enrolled in their English class, then they will go here. And you will have them log in with the information that they use for their English class. Does that make sense? Once they log in, you will then give them 2 pieces of information. They'll be able to add your class, and these class ID numbers that are right here, they will need that information and your class enrollment password that you created. Does that make sense? Is everybody good with that? So, and then they'll start, depending on how many classes are using this, they'll have several classes listed here possibly. Right now, they probably just have their English class. So they just need the class ID and the password. You could create one big class if you wanted to. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I like doing it by periods. It's just easier. It's easier to visually to look at and keep organized. But once they have those 2 pieces of information, they're in your class. The next thing, as you start thinking about what you want to use this for, and as you start thinking about having your students submit, you will be on your teacher page. And when you're ready to create an assignment, it's really simple. So these are assignments that my AP Lit class has done. They've worked on 2 poetry responses. And I want to show you what the plagiarism detection looks like. My husband, I made him create a fake account, and he plagiarized a poetry paper. So we're going to take a look at that.
He was good at it, too.
Yeah. Hey, he knows how to plagiarize. Okay. Look at that 91% down there. Okay. As you see, like here, this is what it'll look like once your students have submitted a paper. And we'll go through that in just a second. But once they have submitted their own paper, and if they've been using this in English class, they may know more about this than you do. So they may just submit it and not need your help at all. But you can see here there's something called a similarity report. And these were just really basic poetry responses that they had to, just respond to a poem. They didn't have a whole lot of, definitive rules about what to do. But you can see down here the percentage is a little higher. These students used lines from the poem that showed up on the originality report, because like this one was by Robert Frost, and there were some lines on, that were online. So that number is kind of flexible. It depends on what the students are doing. The 0%, this is completely original. There's nothing like that on the internet, and these students really didn't use textual evidence in their poetry response. Now, down here, Shane plagiarized his, so I'll show you what this looks like. If you see the red icon, that usually means trouble, and it's not good. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so Shane wrote his poetry response over in the waiting room by Elizabeth Bishop, and he decided to go to shmoop.com, and he decided that that all sounded really great, and he was just going to put that in his paper. And so what will happen is you'll get sometimes several responses here, depending on what it looks like and what's going on, because there are some things that get flagged, like if you were to put, Robert Frost was born on this date in a paper, that might get flagged, and there's only so many ways maybe you could word that. But what you can see here, this one was like word for word. Sometimes most of the students are going to try to change some things. So like I pulled out a few things and changed a few words, and so you can see those words aren't flagged. But this one I just copy and pasted into this. And so when you look at this and see that, you can go here to the internet source and see the original, or you can hover over and it'll pull up the source that it was copied from. Does that make sense? Like the red here is exactly what's on the internet, and then this is what was in the student's paper. Sometimes, the reason this one has two is, and you'll see a lot of student papers show up in the originality report, and the reason that happens is because that student copied from Shmoop also and submitted a paper. Another nice thing about this, and I had this happen when I taught at Beach several times, the students would try to share papers from other classes, like in another English class, they were writing on something similar, and they would try to use their older brother's paper. This will house the papers for several years. So if you have a sibling in, a class and you want to copy their paper and think, oh, I'm just going to use my brother's paper, she'll never know, it will be logged into this database for several years. And so you'll see submitted to Lipscomb Academy, and you can see the paper. Does that make sense at all? So sometimes that kind of thing can happen. Sometimes you'll have over here several different things, and the percentages are like 1%, 1%, and it may be because it's flagging like 2 or 3 words in a row or something like that that's not significant. You just have to discern what, you will be able to tell. And you just have to decide if you think the student was trying to copy something off the internet. It's not too hard to figure this one out, but sometimes they try to change the wording, and they try to get kind of clever with that, but typically it's pretty easy to figure out. If you've got a percentage on this side over 30%, something's probably going on that you need to investigate. Okay, so that is that's probably the nicest feature of the website is this originality. So you're not having to Google, like if you think, that doesn't sound like that student, that's kind of sophisticated analysis. You're not having to type anything in, it's just all right there for you. When you get ready to create an assignment, you just go back to your class page, and when you're ready to add an assignment, it's very straightforward. I'm not going to go into the peer mark and all of that today. We may do that eventually throughout the year, but paper assignment is going to be the one that you would choose. And then you create an assignment title, a point value, a start date. That's when the students can see the assignment. It's kind of like Schoology. A due date for when you want the paper due. It will mark anything late that comes in after that. A post date is when the students can view your feedback if you decide to use that feature. We don't really have time to talk about that today. But then optional settings, if you have instructions that you want them to look at. I always allow submissions after the due date, just in case something happens. And then, originality reports, that's the plagiarism detection. You can exclude a bibliography, you can exclude quotes if you want to, you can exclude small matches. That just kind of depends on what your assignment looks like. I keep it to all of the default settings. I like for the students to see the originality reports. I think that's important to open up a conversation about plagiarism. I think they need to see that. And then you can attach rubrics and all of that if you decided to use the grading feature, but that would take a lot of time to explain. So does everyone feel okay about submitting or creating an assignment, checking for plagiarism? Any questions?
On mine, it doesn't look like the default settings are the same.
I hear Mr. Blankenship
Yeah,
over
Mr.
there laughing.
Blankenship.
I'll have to tell him about that. So he would go to the class, and he would be scared because he had 91% and know that Ms. Burton was going to come down on him about that. But he would go to submit. And one thing that is really important, pretty much all of this is self-explanatory except for this one component, is that you want to make sure they do not change the single file upload to cut and paste. If you do that, it will mess up formatting and it looks kind of strange, and just tell them to keep it on single file upload. You have to create a submission title, and that can be the title of whatever you're working on. And then if they want to choose from their computer, they've saved it in a Word document. Turnitin does not like Pages. It likes Google Docs and Microsoft Word. So they could choose from their computer or choose from Dropbox or choose from Google Drive. Once they do that, they attach it just like anything and upload it and submit. And it's pretty straightforward. Jennifer?
They didn't like the iPads.
Yes, it does not like iPads. We've all kind of been dealing with that.
It'll do it for most of them, but some of them.
And we can't figure out why it's working sometimes. Like Aaron mentioned that, I think it was Aaron that said it was working one period and then it was not working the next period. So if you anticipate something like that happening, you may want to, if you're going to have them all submit at the same time, you may want to get the Chromebooks and let them do it from there. If you think that's going to be an issue, you may just want to be flexible with the iPads because that's happened. Tiffany had to call in Phil Sanders, like it was kind of crazy. So we're not really sure why that's happening, but it has not been problematic from Chromebooks or computers.
If they got on Google Drive and created a Google Doc and did their essay or whatever on Google Doc, can they upload it to that from?
Yes, they would just go.
So
to,
they'd have it saved, then it just
they
wouldn't
would have
upload
to, and
that.
they have to be sure. You have to be sure they're logged into their Google Drive account through school, and then once they go to choose from Google Drive, it pulls up their Google Drive and they just pick the document. And they submit and upload. It is not complete until they see that they have a digital receipt, and that can be emailed to them if they need it to be, but they are like, this is nothing to them. Except for the iPad issue, they have no problem doing this. It's a lot like Schoology with submitting and attaching and all of that.
Well, and on the iPads, like, using the website has worked 1,000 times better than, like, the app.
We're not advocating use of the app at the moment because it seems to be glitchy. So I've been telling my students,
Turnitin.com, don't use the Turnitin.
I've been telling my students to use the website.
Was my problem. When I had them, the ones who were trying to use the app, switched to use the website, it went much smoother.
But if you're just starting from scratch, would you have them do the assignment on a Google Doc and then they go to that and then they upload it? Or
I think Google Docs are the easiest, or Microsoft Word.
but they're actually doing the assignment on Google Docs. So if worse came to worse, you could still grade it a different way.
Right. This is
not
like
actually writing it
Schoology,
on
like where they would
Turnitin.com.
submit. They're not writing on Turnitin,
Okay, all right,
no.
okay.
Unless you were to use the discussion boards or those kinds of things. But
The main thing, Chastity, too, I know with my issues, is making sure that, because they will sign into their personal Gmail account, because it's automatically signing them in. So when they go to submit it from their Lipscomb Gmail account, it's not pulling up. So I always just tell them now, make sure you save it to your Lipscomb Gmail account, because otherwise it won't pull up. That was my
if they're navigating between two Gmail accounts,
Yeah.
that would be important. Most of mine use Google Drive. I have a few that use Microsoft Word, especially for longer papers. They just like Microsoft Word. But Pages, I would not recommend. It has a hard time converting that. But Google Drive is by far the easiest one to use.
If they upload it and they see that they have plagiarized, can they resend that upload and rewrite?
That's up to you.
Okay.
If you can have them, you can have them override the originality.
Okay.
What about Notability? Could they write something on Notability?
I don't think they can. I think one of my students tried to do that and it
doesn't
won't.
recognize notability.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has to be in either Microsoft document.
But again, this is a great tool, not just for essays. I mean, if you have them answering questions and you think they're copying off the internet, anything you would suspect them using the internet for, I think this would be a tool that could be valuable, that would save time. So, but if you need anything, I can help you. I have learned a lot just kind of navigating through this. This website has evolved quite a bit in the last few years, so I'll do my best to help you if you need any help. Or the English teachers are getting very savvy as well. They're learning a lot too as we're going through this together.
English teachers have always been savvy.
Oh yes, we are a savvy group. Yes. Okay. Well, if you have any questions.